Displaced and in despair, two young men who crossed the Channel to the UK to claim asylum, but were then detained and deported back to France.
At the moment that we landed to the UK, we felt safe when we saw the British police and we saw the UK flag. But a few hours later, we just got surprised that we are under the detention. So I think my future has been destroyed because of the UK government.
This is the first broadcast interview with migrants sent back under what the UK government has lauded as a groundbreaking scheme. They asked not to be identified because, they say, they fear for their futures. Abdul is from Yemen, Ali from East Africa. Why did you want to go to England?
Actually, my country is going on a war and I can't come back to my country. I either be arrested there or killed. That's why I have chosen to cross the Channel and to go to the UK to apply an asylum. And that was my first and last chance to save my life.
And why did you want to go to England?
Our government wants to kill me. I escaped from that country.
The men have been placed in a hostel in the centre of Paris after arriving back from Britain just days ago. We've obtained this footage from inside, which shows around 40 asylum seekers in one room. There's an acute shortage of accommodation here. The men's experiences of the one-in, one-out deal suggest serious flaws in a scheme which critics say isn't acting as a deterrent. Last week, it emerged that an Iranian man who'd been deported managed to get on another small boat back to Britain. This after the returns deal had been announced to much fanfare in July.
So I'm pleased to announce our agreement today on a groundbreaking returns pilot. Thank you. Sealing
the deal.
Merci beaucoup.
The two leaders agreed some asylum seekers arriving by boat would be deported back, in return for the UK accepting the same number from France through a new limited legal route. But how is the Home Office selecting those who are to be deported? And what happens to them once they're back in France? We've been finding out. Abdul and Ali, not their real names, reached the UK in August and were then detained for 58 days. Did the British government tell you why they had chosen you to be detained?
They don't tell us. I don't know how they choose us. We are not criminal. We doesn't do anything.
The men say they understood from British officials they'd be able to claim asylum in France. In fact, France's Interior Ministry has confirmed that many of those who are returned here won't be able to apply for asylum because of the Dublin arrangement, under which they have to apply in the first EU country they entered, which some are reluctant to do, fearing they'll eventually be deported back to their home countries. This agreement doesn't apply in England since Brexit. Faced with this realisation, we understand a number of the men have left their hostels, including an Indian who was one of the first to be returned. We asked the Interior Ministry for a response, but they didn't want to comment. Some officials have questioned whether France has the capacity to deal with its asylum seekers. The ugly underbelly of this glamorous city, underneath the railway arches in the heart of Paris.
Bonjour. Ça va? Oh, you are sleeping here?
Yeah, sleep like.
Oh, okay.
Malik is from Ethiopia. He's been sleeping in this tent for around 4 months. He's been told there's no housing, but he does get a monthly allowance.
415 euro
Yeah.
outside.
Every
Yeah,
month,
yeah,
450
every
euros.
Like most fleeing East Africa, Malik crossed the Med from Libya to Italy before entering France.
First Sudan, Libya, Mediterranean Sea.
So a very long journey.
Yeah.
He's waiting to see if his asylum claim will be accepted here. If not, he admits, he might try the UK.
But
You're
UK.
hoping for your
Yeah,
papers?
UK.
Yeah, you want to go to the UK?
The last chance.
So England would be your last chance?
Yeah, last chance.
More and more of these encampments are springing up across Paris. By law, asylum seekers have the right to accommodation whilst their application is being considered. But there's an acute shortage here of properties, and in truth, barely a third are being housed, and that's why so many end up sleeping rough.
What prospect for those who find themselves homeless and potentially unable to claim asylum? Some of those deported from England, including Abdul, tried to bring legal challenges which were then rejected by the courts.
There are lots of people in England who say that you came into England illegally, you shouldn't have come on a boat, and that France is safe, so you should be deported.
For me, France and the whole EU is not safe.
Why do you say it's not safe here?
Because one of the points of my case is that my cousins are running after me. They threatened me, and they live here in the EU. The moment that I have arrived to France, I'm expected to be killed at any time.
Abdul also claims he's been threatened by people smugglers.
They say for France is a safe country, but I didn't see it's safe for me.
Both men tell me they'd go back to England if they could.
What will you do now?
We are just looking for a safe. If we have chance to go back legally, we would.
I will try my best to go to UK. I don't have any situation. If I go to my back country, the government threat to kill me. I think I'll feel safe in the UK.
The Home Office told us individuals who try to re-enter the UK illegally will be deported. Although this scheme has been described as part of the solution, those whose futures have been caught up in it and who say they're seeking safety, getting back to the UK may feel like their only option.
Darshna Soni reporting from Paris. Well, the government says it is planning to use more military bases to house asylum seekers. The Home Office has confirmed that barracks in Scotland and southern England would be used to house about 900 men temporarily. The plans will see them housed at Cameron Barracks in Inverness and Crowborough Training Camp in East Sussex. Well, joining me now is Jonathan Hinder, a Labour MP who co-founded the culturally conservative Blue Labour caucus in Parliament, and Carla, who leads in migration for the Greens in England and Wales. As it happens, a poll this morning, and it is only one poll, put the Greens just 1% behind Labour. Welcome to you both. With that in mind, Jonathan Hinder, we just saw in Darshna's report there doesn't seem to be a process in France for dealing with the people who are being sent back. There's no housing for them. So this whole idea of one in, one out is kind of flawed from the very inception, isn't it?
Well, what the government's trying to do with the one in, one out is create a deterrent. And obviously, we've seen relatively small numbers go back so far. What I want to see is us scale that up very, very quickly.
Yes.
So that means that there's a smaller chance that if you get on a boat to come to this country, you are not going to be able to stay here. The situation we inherited from the Conservatives was that if you do get on a boat to come to this country, there's a very small chance that you're actually going to be removed. So we need to completely flip that on its head. That's what the Home Secretary is trying to do. We've got to increase that deterrent.
But how do you do that? How do you scale it up so much that it actually becomes a deterrent?
Well, we've said that it's a pilot, and we want to move really quickly to scale those numbers up with the French. There's no point pointing fingers. You know, Emmanuel Macron has been very clear. The people of northern France are really suffering as a result of this as well, as we see people rushing to the north coast of France. So we've got to work with them in partnership. Let's not point fingers. Let's move as quickly as we can. But then it's also about having a deterrent in terms of the accommodation that people are spending in. The idea that they should be in hotels, I think to most voters in the country, the vast majority, is not right. You know, they're refugees, so they should be in suitable accommodation for refugee status.
You're trying to make it as unappealing as possible.
Well, we need a deterrent. If we don't have a deterrent, people are going to keep coming. And so the stronger we can make that deterrent, the more we can get control of our borders, and then we can have a compassionate refugee policy, which means we have control, we can agree democratically how many people are going to be coming in, where they're coming from, countries to which we have a historical obligation would be at the front of the queue. That's what we're trying to create.
Carla, you're smiling, but not with your eyes.
The thing is, Jonathan said the word deterrent about 10 times in that answer, but it's not acting as a deterrent, is it? We've seen from your piece there. Well, to me, it's really obvious that the most effective way of deterring people from getting on dangerous small boats, putting themselves in the hands of people smugglers, is to give them an alternative. Because let's just be clear here, the UK government has set it up so that you cannot apply for asylum from abroad, but neither is there any legitimate way to travel here to apply for asylum on UK soil. So it's small boats or nothing. And so it's putting very vulnerable, desperate people into the hands of people smugglers when there is an alternative, which would be to provide safe and managed routes. And by the way, it's not just me saying this, it is also Border Force staff on the front line, members of the PCS union, who have argued as well, same as the Green Party, for safe and managed routes so that people can come here by legitimate, safe, managed means apply for asylum. If they're found that they've got a strong case, they'll get refugee status, which most of them do, and then we can move on efficiently from there.
So when we talk about safe routes, we already have safe routes. So this country has welcomed
How many nationalities?
Hundreds of
How many
thousands
nationalities?
of refugees from Ukraine, from Hong Kong, from Afghanistan over the last few years.
And that's
so much
it.
so, we had net migration of nearly 1 million people under the Conservatives in the last government. So we already have safe routes. What the Greens are saying is they want open borders. It's a euphemism for open borders.
No,
it's basically saying we want anyone from anywhere in whatever numbers to have a safe route. That's not serious. Either you've got control of your borders, you have a compassionate, humane refugee policy, or you have open borders. They're completely out of touch with the British public.
Open borders?
I mean, my focus, as I've made very clear already, is making sure that we have a humane, compassionate asylum system, bearing in mind that asylum is a small proportion of total migration, so let's not conflate them. Now, one of the things that I value most about being part of the Greens is that we've got a clear vision of the world that we ultimately want to get to, as well as practical policies for here and now. So we do want to see a future where climate change has been tackled, where global poverty and conflict have been reduced significantly, and those are the major drivers for people having to flee their homes and seek asylum in other countries. And so that would reduce that demand substantially. And in that future, we would want to see a situation where it's less necessary to enforce and have such stringent deterrents, as you said. After all, remember, we were part of the EU, which was effectively open borders, and actually that was pretty good. But there is a difference between wanting to see a future where climate change and poverty is dealt with and migration is an entirely different beast.
You can talk about all the
world we are in now, where I want to see a compassionate asylum system. Also things like, why on earth is your government preventing asylum seekers working to support themselves, which would mean that they would pay tax and contribute to the economy?
I mean, we talk about
I guess that would be a pull. That would be what would be described as a pull factor.
There's no evidence for that, though.
I've got a question for you, though, Carla. If you have, a legal process where people apply for asylum back in the country that they want to leave, and they're turned down because we can't take everyone in, what happens then? They've been turned down in the legal process. They'll still try and get across on a small boat, won't they?
Well, the problem is that our current asylum system, no, not the problem. The good thing is that the majority of people who apply for asylum, it is found that they have a strong case. So there are not that many people trying to cheat the system. A good number of people get it on first application and then more get it on appeal, which is a sign of the problem with our very broken migration system, that it's not assessing things fairly. And in fact, I commissioned a report earlier this year on a proposal to break up the Home Office entirely and put migration in a different department to crime and justice. Because my concern is that by treating those as one and the same, that's part of the problem here, that we're sort of treating all migrants as if they're criminals, rather than making migration work for the country by investing in public services, investing in integration, and that will benefit everyone, whether you've been here a long time or not.
OK. Jonathan Hinder, isn't the problem here that you are essentially trying to do what Reform UK and the Tories are trying to do, but you're actually in government, and as we saw from the France example, it's not working particularly well. So you will never win that battle, of controlling migration, controlling our borders, when you've got Reform breathing down your neck, from the right and indeed the Tories.
Well, no one's pretending this is...
And in the process, you're compromising your principles.
No, not at all. Not at all. There's nothing left-wing about having open borders and not having any control over who's in the country. Absolutely not. Voters in Pendle and Clitheroe, they're good, compassionate people. They just want control of their borders. And it is their entitlement that the government of the country should have control over that. So let me address your point. The Conservatives, one of the main reasons they were booted out was because they couldn't sort this out, right? So they let this spiral out of control. So they're irrelevant to this topic. People are not going to listen to them for many, many years. When it comes to reform, this is the one thing they've got. They've just got grievance politics. They've just got immigration. Imagine if we actually sorted this out. We had a proper deterrent. We had that controlled, compassionate system. Then we'll get a hearing for all those other good things that the government are doing. But at the moment, it's getting crowded out with this because people just say, sort it out.
And you're giving it the publicity of the oxygen of publicity as well, because you keep talking about it. Just one quick question.
Voters on the doorstep talk to me about it every week.
Lucy Powell, just elected as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, says we need a progressive consensus, perhaps with the Greens, the party that is just 1 point behind you in the opinion polls.
The Green Party that apparently wants to tackle climate change, but not with new nuclear. You know, they're fundamentally unserious. They want to leave NATO.
So no progressive consensus? Would you like a progressive consensus with Jonathan Hinder?
My impression is that a lot of backbench Labour MPs agree much more with myself and the Green Party on these issues than with Keir Starmer and yourself. On having a compassionate approach to migration and asylum. You know, you claimed earlier that you're responding to what the public want, but actually the public's views on migration are strong, but are actually quite nuanced. So they want the government to take control of the situation. They don't want people going on small boats, but neither do I. It's not safe. It's not good for anyone.
You want open borders.
But when you actually
That's the big difference.
We're going to have to shut it down because we've run out of time. I don't think progressive consensus between two of you is going to work anytime soon. But thank you very much for coming on. Jonathan Hinder, Carla. Thank you very much indeed.